Welcome back to the Way Out Recovery Hour. I'm Bob Schallert, and we are the Way Out. Remember that asking for help is the first step. You can contact us at 661-296-4444, or you can go to our website at thewayoutrrecoveryscv.com. I am in studio today with Larry Schallert from the Health and Wellness Center at College of the Canyons, and we have been talking about some pretty heavy-hitting issues, mental health and suicidality and substance use disorders, amongst other things. Larry works with a population primarily at the school of young adults. You have an average, you said, age on campus of 27?
Yes, and it's interesting because we have a lot of students that get down on themselves. You know, when they're 26, 27, 30, 35, they think, oh, I'm not doing as well. When I tell them, hey, the average age is 27 here, and they realize, hey, you know, it's never too late to start. It's always okay to just get on, make a goal, and go for it. So
I keep my brain keeps going back to you graduated someone who was 99 last year.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Never too late.
Yeah, because it seems like the older we get, if we haven't achieved our life goals, there's a tendency to go it's too late.
Right.
But
never too late.
Yeah, we get any of our older population in with us, and I go, look, if you keep putting it off, then you're going to keep putting it off. But if you start today, right, then you can get it done. Look at me. I didn't start doing stuff till I was a little bit older myself.
There you go.
And things are going my way. So
right.
All right. So let's talk specifically about suicidality.
Okay.
You mentioned that 1,100 students not on campus, but that are enrolled in community colleges?
Enrolled in colleges and universities across the country. So that's a nationwide statistic. It's pretty stable over the course of, the last 10, 15 years or so. It's
annually, 11,000 suicides.
Right. 1,100.
1,100, excuse me.
So,
1,100.
When we look at something like College of the Canyons and we see that, there's thousands of universities, and 1,100, our odds are pretty high. I mean, if you have three students, that's a lot.
It's significant, yeah.
So we wrote a grant called a SAMHSA grant, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration grant, and through that grant, we've been able to bolster our outreach and our training, and learn a lot more about suicide and suicide prevention, and do some outreach and that sort of thing to try to pull that number down, which we've been really very successful, except for the end of 2015. That was a tough year for us, or the beginning, like in fall. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you said fall it seems to be the season that it's the toughest.
Yeah, we've kind of been studying it, like what's going on with fall, and we realized that, or our thinking is, and it's all anecdotal, but our thinking is, when you start college, you don't really know if you're going to make it. You don't really know what's going on, if you have any kind of life stressors or any kind of mental health issues. You're moving into midterms, and now you got 3 or 4 midterms you got to you got tests and that stuff, so it can get really discouraging, and the end of the semester is a long way away. You don't know, it's a lot of pressure on midterms. June is like impossibly far away, and so you can get really despondent, and you can feel hopeless and feel like you want to give up. So we last year put all of our marbles into outreach and teaching people and what the warning signs, and trying to get people aware of the stress issues related to the fall semester. And we were successful. We didn't have any people take their lives last fall. We felt, okay, we might have something there. And
it's a continuous effort, though. It never stops.
It never stops. Never stops. So
right.
We also, as part of the Blue Ribbon Task Force and our Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration Advisory Committee, really reached out to our local providers, such as you guys and the Heart Schools and our local community, and try to address the issue that transition age youth are very high rate. We have a lot of transition age youth just in our community that take their lives every year, and we've really had some great success in addressing that, and we've really brought the numbers down from a very high number to a very low number in the last year or so. So we feel that with community effort and sustained effort, we can really make an impact with training and outreach and information. We can make an impact on transition age youth. And now, I don't know if we have time to talk about it, but we've noticed that our senior population is a high-risk population, so that our seniors are taking their lives at a very high rate. So we've been convening meetings about senior mental health recently, and trying to. We're thinking about doing the same sort of thing, and we've actually got some training set up for that.
So, and generally speaking, teenagers have the highest rates of attempted suicides. Transitional age youth has the numbers that we talked about earlier. But something that was interesting for me to find out many years ago, that is the truth. Although more seniors don't attempt suicide, there are more completed suicides in that age group. In the age group, specifically in elderly white males between the ages of 65 and 80.
Right.
More completed suicide in that age group than any other.
Right. And the warning signs are similar, but the issues may not be. As you pointed out, if
the stressors are certainly going to be different.
The stressors are different. I mean, you could have a loss of a spouse. You could have, retirement issues. You could have
pain issues,
and medical issues, and just being old, trying to think about, well, okay, what's my legacy, and all the sort of things that happen with seniors. And so, but the warning signs are very similar, so we want to really pay attention to what are some of the warning signs of suicide, and we'll try to get the word out on that.
So let's talk a little bit about those warning signs. So we should all be aware, first of all, that 1 in 5 or maybe 1 in 4, somewhere in that number. So we're talking 20 to 25% of any adult, of anybody, is going to have a mental health issue.
Right.
And in that world right there, there's very high risk for suicidality and many other issues. So just take that into context, is that as you're walking around, I mean, there's 5 of us, 1, 2, I'm counting. There's 5 of us sitting in the room right here, right? And so as you go through your day-to-day, every 5 people, one of them is going to have some issues in there, and puts them at a higher risk for suicidality. So,
sure.
So it could be anybody. So I need to pay attention to these warning signs, kind of in the back, on the forefront, all the time, all the time. So what are those?
So, of course, the number one warning sign is somebody that's talking about killing themselves. They're talking about taking their life. They're talking about, they might say, I'm thinking about killing myself. I'm thinking about taking my life, that sort of thing. If they talk about feeling hopelessness is one of the key warning signs, because people don't think there's a future, even though there is. We know that depression kind of can come over in a wave, and so on a temporary basis, you may feel like, there's no hope. Having an organized plan is the other really important one. So if you have a plan that's organized, such as I'm thinking of using my parents' firearm, or I'm using a firearm that I got, and I'm going to shoot myself tonight, tomorrow, so it's in time. I'm thinking of hanging myself, or I'm thinking of stepping in front of a train or a car, or something like that. And it's doable, and it's possible. It's not like, hey, I'm thinking about jumping off the Empire State Building and you live in California. It's kind of a, you're thinking about suicide. It's really serious. It's really important. But it's not as organized, but I'm thinking about doing it right now. I'm thinking about doing it in the next couple of days. It's a really high risk. Somebody that's giving away their most valuable and important items, such as rings, or, you name it, something that's important to them, their guitar, their skateboard, whatever it is that's important to them, they're giving it away to their trusted family members or friends, things like that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of times these are in combination with each other. Not only am I giving away my stuff, but I'm also saying, why bother? Life is hopeless. I've been thinking about ending it all anyway.
Exactly.
My parents have a gun, so I might as well use that tonight. Right. Now we're getting into higher and higher risk.
High risk.
Depending on what really that conversation sounds like.
Yeah, and in terms of your shop, if anybody's increasing the use of alcohol and drugs, that's because they can. It could be a result of being anxious or depressed, or having mental health issue, mental illness, but it also could be a way lead to recklessness. Like I could instead of having the judgment, I'm I'm not going to take my life. I'm not going to hang myself. I'm not going to drive a car, when I'm high or when I'm drunk. Instead, they're drinking, and so increased use of alcohol and drugs. Withdrawal. Somebody that's like normally very active and very open is suddenly withdrawn, and or somebody that's normally kind of steady is suddenly really hyperactive or manic or so changes in mood, showing unreasonable rage. Talking about getting revenge, those sort of things. And the ones that's become kind of more and more paying attention is talking about being a burden.
Right.
People feel like,
especially in that, maybe not especially, but certainly in the older population.
Right. Being a burden is like, well, you feel like you're burdened, and maybe you feel guilty, excessive guilt and that sort of thing, which is a manifestation of depression, guilt, excessive guilt. But if you're feeling a burden to your family and your friends, no matter what age, but certainly when you're senior, or when you're disabled in some kind of way, can be another warning sign.
Something that's come up several times over the last years in the clients that we work with is there will be a family member or even the person themselves will come to me and say, like, I'm just feeling off, I'm having some suicidal thoughts, here's what's going on. And one of the questions that I've always been trained to ask is, are you on any medications, and have you changed or stopped abruptly or started abruptly?
Yeah, those are great questions.
And if so, it's something for families to be aware of, is that if you have a family member who has mental health issues and is taking some sort of medications, and all of a sudden there's a dramatic mood change or some suicidality, that one of the things to find out is, did they run out of their medications? Did they stop abruptly? Have they changed recently? And because sometimes that can maybe not cause it, but it can certainly make a dramatic mood change in somebody.
Yeah, and you got to be careful with it, because you don't want to say, hey, you're off your meds, so sometimes it can sound very disrespectful. Hey, you're not taking your meds, like, wait, it's not me, so you got to be careful on how you say it and when you say it, but assessing the situation with medication is an important part of any assessment.
Right. And remember that if somebody has these warning signs, that as a family member or a loved one, you don't have to try to tackle this on your own.
Exactly.
There are many resources. There is suicide hotline.
Right. So we want to make sure.
Let's give out some numbers.
Everybody has a suicide hotline number. It's we call it the Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
Right.
It's 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. And what's cool about that number is you can call that anytime, 24/7, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. At any time, there'll be somebody there to talk to you about if you're feeling suicidal, or if you're standing next to somebody that's feeling suicidal, a family member, a friend. And what we tell people, we really like to have people have this number in their cell phone, so that you have basically a counselor in your back pocket 24/7.
Right.
So like with young people, they're at a party, something like 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and somebody's talking suicide. They have somebody that they can call and say, hey, my friend here is talking about suicide. I don't know what to do. You can call that number, and this will be somebody there that you can consult with. And they have all the local resources in their file. They can hook the person up. They can talk to the person that's feeling that way, and they can coach you.
So I was going to say, if you're listening and you have your cell phone out, but I almost don't have to say that. Everybody always has their cell phone out, right?
Right. Nowadays.
Let's take a moment right now. Let's take a moment. Go to your contacts. Let's put in Suicide Prevention Hotline, new contact, 1-800-273-8255. Again, 800-273-8255. Plug that in your phone, and you may not ever need to use that, but It's better to have it in the phone.
Exactly.
Some other resources always, if there is danger present right now, 911.
Right.
In any emergency situation,
Exactly.
call 911, and make sure everything is safe.
Right. If you have that organized plan and hopelessness and somebody's talking about killing themselves, you can't really let somebody like that alone. You really want to stay with them. Right. Call 911. Sheriffs in this town are extremely sensitive. They've been very, very helpful under the guidance of the former sheriff, the former captain, and the current captain. We have a mental evaluation team that can come out.
So a couple of other numbers. I don't know offhand the number to Henry Mayo, but I do know the Sheriff's Department is 661-255-1121. Again, 255-1121. That is the Sheriff's Department. And if you make that call, just say to them, I'm concerned about some mental health issues, because they have specialty. They're all trained in mental health. There's not a professional or a law enforcement person today that hasn't had some mental health training. It's
Right.
in our world. However, they do have some special teams that can come out,
Right.
and it's better if they're aware
Right.
that there's mental health issues before they pay a visit to somebody's house.
Exactly.
But the sheriff's that's a great call. Henry Mayo Hospital is
Right.
another wonderful call. They
Yep.
have a 24/7 inpatient acute psychiatric unit. If you can get somebody in the car who you're concerned about, take them to the emergency room. They will be evaluated at the emergency room and may or may not be admitted, but they'll be assessed for safety.
Right, and two other agencies in town that are very strong is a Child and Family Center. They have a crisis unit there. You can walk in during business hours, and Santa Clarita Mental Health is also on Cinema Drive.
Yep.
Both great agencies that can help you, during business hours. So it's if nighttime is a different story, but Henry Mayo and the sheriff and the prevention line are all great resources after hours.
And I think the important thing to know about having those resources is that if you're experiencing some mental health issues and especially suicidality with you personally or anybody that you know, that it's important to not be afraid to ask those questions.
Exactly.
To not be afraid. If somebody comes, if you're a student and your friend comes and says, I'm experiencing these issues, but please don't tell anybody, that I really, really want to implore you to tell somebody.
You're right.
Don't hold back,
Right.
and in the confidence of your friend, hold back from saying I think they're suicidal.
Right.
Act on it now. It
Right.
would be better for your friend to be upset with you
Exactly.
than the alternative.
Yeah, and we teach this in mental health first aid, is to ask if somebody's thinking about killing themselves or taking their life. Ask, because it's usually they've given, in 90% of the time they've given these sort of signs to other people, and you may be the first one that actually asks. So it's usually a sense of relief. Okay, somebody noticed I'm in distress,
Right.
and so you kind of assess the situation and just listen non-judgmentally. It's a really important part of mental health first aid, is like to ask, find out if there's somebody, if they're in distress or thinking about killing themselves, and then listen non-judgmentally to what's going on.
Right. So speaking of mental health first aid, when we come back, we're only going to have a few minutes. It's break time right now, but we're going to spend those couple of minutes talking about mental health first aid. It's a relatively new training, I think, throughout the United States.
Yep.
And we really encourage, especially any professionals, but also family members or anyone who would like to get the training, to be open and available to get that training, mental health first aid. It's just like knowing CPR or knowing any other kind of
Exactly.
first aid,
Exactly.
that in today's world, we need to know mental health first aid as well. I'm Bob Schallert. This is the Way Out Recovery Hour. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Way Out Recovery Hour. I'm Bob Schallert, and we are the Way Out. Again, asking for help is the first step, and our contact at the Way Out is 661-296-4444. We are at the Way Out Recovery SCV.com, and again, whether it's with us or somebody else, asking for help is the first step. We're in studio with Larry Schallert, and we have had a fantastic show. If you're listening and you've heard this information and you're wondering, like, where can I go from here, or how can I piggyback on this, or what more can I do to get involved, we want to talk about an event that is coming up that we want to encourage everyone to show up to. It's at the Performing Arts Center at College of the Canyons, and go.
thanks for let me talk about this because we're extremely excited about this. We're going to have Kevin Berthia along with Kevin Briggs there on September 13th at 5:30 at the PAC. Kevin Berthia was a young gentleman young father who had real strong feelings of suicide. He was very depressed, and he walked to the Golden Gate Bridge with full intention of taking his life unless somebody along the way asked him how he was doing. Of course, nobody knew how depressed he was, and nobody asked him how he's doing. So he ended up on the rail at Golden Gate Bridge, and who came along was an officer of the law, like a sheriff, and would just stood there for like 30 minutes and didn't say anything, was just there for him. And then for the next 60 minutes, just asked him what was going on with his life, And then both names Kevin. That's Kevin Briggs was the sheriff, and Kevin Berthia was on the rail. All he had to do was let go. And Kevin Briggs asked him how he's doing, and finally asked him, well, would you like to go to your son's birthday party? And he said, yeah, I guess I do want to do that. And he came off the bridge. And it was a very, very profound moment, because we realized that, listening to somebody that's really despondent and really feeling strongly about suicide and feeling very depressed and hopeless is sometimes the best thing. And sometimes you don't have to do a lot, just be there. Yeah. And so we have the privilege of having both of them at the same stage. Last year, Kevin Berthia came and talked about what his experience was like. This year, we have both Kevin Briggs and Kevin Berthia on the same stage. So we're going to have providers there, such as The Way Out and other providers. So you'll have local people to be able to talk to. But this is going to be a really major event on September 13th. Get there at 5:30, and we're hoping that we can really get a lot of folks out there, because we think it's really important to get the message across how important it is to learn about mental health, learn about suicide, and learn about what you can do as a citizen, as a friend, as a family member.
September 13th, free event at the Performing Arts Center at College of the Canyons. Arrive at 5:30 p.m. And as you're talking about that, I'm back here listening, thinking, wow, how big that is. That I could be driving across that bridge and just see all those people that are always walking back and forth across that bridge. How many people a day do we drive right by and we never stop to ask, how are you doing?
Right. Yeah. It's just sometimes that's all it takes. And so be ready. We've talked a little about mental health first aid. Ask how you're doing. Listen non-judgmentally. Encourage professional help. Encourage self-help strategies such as exercise and groups and family members and spiritual leaders and that sort of thing. So there's all kinds of things that you can learn to do, but listening non-judgmentally is like one of the most important things.
Right. And then how brave it is for both of them to go around and tell their story, right?
It's really,
isn't that cool?
It's completely awesome, and it's very strong stuff. So bring your
tissues.
Your tissues.
Bring your tissues and a family member. Yeah. And there's never, it's never inappropriate to expose any of your family members to this,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so bring your kids.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure, under 12
certainly not little kids.
Might not be the right thing, but certainly transition age youth or anybody else.
And your teenagers.
Since teenagers, I think we get a lot out of it. We never know what's going on with their teenagers, and we never know, what their future careers are. Maybe this will help them to decide what they want to do in life.
Larry Schallert, always a pleasure to have the Health and Wellness Center up here from College of the Canyons, helping students every day, and you are a wonderful voice, and I appreciate you very much, Larry.
Well, I appreciate you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
All right, this is the Way Out Recovery Hour. We will see everyone next week.